And CBA tools, these are just tools that are used to evaluate learners, to assess their skills, their knowledge, their attitudes, and also their values. As we know, the CBE is a way of assessing these learners practically. They monitor to monitor practically the skills, not just memorizing. They are not just memorizing by writing, but actually whatever these learners are doing practically, you are observing them doing things by maybe, let me say, by use of hands. So that's what we call assessment tools in CBE. So another thing that I have to talk about CBA assessment and CBA assessment is just on how they maybe assess learners from grade 3 to grade 12, of which I'm going to repeat again because Mr. Makwesa has already discussed about that. The CARE, the KCARE, the KTCARE, and the KCB assessments. So I've just mentioned them, not to waste time. I will introduce those particular assessment tools. We have 12 of them. They're here. You can just pay a look. We have observation schedules. We have written tests, learner's profile, rating scales, oral and oral questioning. We have anecdotal records. We have journals, projects, rubrics, portfolio, checklists, and questionnaires. I'll just have to welcome the next presenter to at least say something about the assessment tools.
Thank you. Good morning, colleagues.
Good morning.
Okay, in addition to what my colleague has mentioned on the assessment tools, when it comes to CBE, we have various methods of assessing our learners. We can use any of the 9 of them depending on the classroom, the different abilities of the learners, and the different learning styles of the learners. We also take into consideration the expected outcome, what you meant to gauge at the end of that assessment. So I'll be very quick with them. We have the first one, which is the observation schedule. When we talk about this one outlines the characteristics and the behavior that a learner shows during a performance of a specific task. So this one mostly lies on the teacher, where you now give the learners a task. For example, if it is in creative art where you have something like throwing a javelin, you can now take them to the field, guide them on the appropriate ways, and then observe the key competencies the learner is able to achieve, the learner has met. Then you can write down if the learner is able to throw it, if the learner is able to grip it properly, if the learner is able to understand the rules of the game. Then we have, this is an example of an observation schedule. You do not have any predetermined expected outcomes. You just have the indicators of the competency, that is the knowledge. Colleagues, remember that for this one, we not only look at the memorization of the content, we also consider the attitudes, the values, the knowledge, and the skills. So you can have the indicators of the key competency and the observation right after having the learner's details. And most importantly, you have clearly outlined the purpose of that observation. Which specific learning outcome are you aiming to assess here? You have the observations, then you can have the students and the teacher's signature. Remember, learning is always a collaboration of the teacher and the learner. Then we have, this is an example of an observation schedule of Daraja Moja, Junior Secondary School. The student is major minor. We have the area assessed was textiles and clothing, sewing machine. Then we have the task was learners were to prepare a sewing machine for straight stitching. Then we have the observations and the teacher's comment, the student's signature, the teacher's signature, and the date. Then we have our next item, which is the observation checklist. Now, the observation checklist is a bit different from the observation in that for the observation checklist, you have some specific expected outcomes that you've listed down. For example, if it was the same task about sewing, is the learner able to sew? Then you have your columns, yes, no. If the learner was able to sew, you have a tick. If the learner was able to use the needles, you have a yes or no column where you can tick yes or no, depending on if the learner has achieved the competency or not yet. So, this is an example of a checklist. This is an example of a checklist where we have a Carrie George, a grade 7 learner from BD Junior Secondary School. It's integrated science. And then we have here where we have the competencies listed and if the learner has achieved it or not it. To just tick. If the learner has achieved, you have a tick yes. If not, you have a tick there. That is an observation checklist. The observation and the observation checklist are mostly used for practical activities, that is sewing, playing a game, singing a folk song or a dance, singing a song if it is in the creative art. This one is mostly used for the observation. Then we have, for languages, you can have things like debates where you can observe if the learner was audible, if the learner employed the verbal and non-verbal use. Then we have the rating scale. Now, this one is used to assess performance of a learner over the quantitative and qualitative learning experience of a learner over a given time. For example, if it is reading, is the learner able to read this set book? Does this learner read it sometimes? Is this learner able to read most of the time, or is the learner mostly able? Then you can award some marks for the learner. If the learner is mostly able to read, you can have 5 marks. If the learner sometimes reads, we can have 3. And if the learner rarely reads, we can have, for example, 1 mark. We can have, here is the example of the rating scale. And you do not necessarily have to have the always, usually, and sometimes. You can have excellent, you can have fair, you can have trying. So for the rating scale, you have around 3 to 4 columns to gauge the extent of competency achieved. You can have, for example, in this example here, we have the sometimes, we have the usually, and we have the always. That is the example of the rating scale. Then we have questionnaires. Now this is a set of questions that have been printed out containing factual and opinion inquiries to students. This one is mostly meant to gauge their understanding of certain areas or subtopics, their attitudes towards certain areas. These can be used, can be beneficial for both the learner and the educator in that the educator can be able to gauge on areas that he or she might not be delivering in the way that best suits the learners, and maybe take a different teaching approach. And then you can have the learners also are able to identify their weaknesses and work on them. Then we have questionnaires. You can have the multiple questions, the yes or no, true or false questions, and open-ended questions. Then we have then we have the lastly, this is an example of the questionnaire. Then lastly, we have the projects. This is what I'm going to discuss as the last assessment tool, the projects. Now, when it comes to the projects, this is a set of activities implemented within a given time frame. Now, for certain strands and substrands, you can decide to do it as a topic in order to gauge the learner's understanding in terms of the practical skills, in terms so that they can have a platform for applying the theoretical knowledge to practical knowledge. For example, we have subjects like CSL, where learners can construct a bin when they see when they see litter around the school. They can decide to build, for example, a workshop. They can also decide to. Someone help me think of a project that learners can decide to do in the school.
Identifying a problem within the school, like lack of in the kitchen garden, and establishing one to solve the problems that arise with it.
Thank you for that. Yes, so we have they can identify a problem in the school. For example, the lack of a kitchen garden in the school, and decide to plant one. Very good. Now, from here, the learners you can now, using that, you can now assess the learners' ability to think critically, to contribute to their school community. You can also learn the leadership skills in these learners. You can also have learn about their teamwork, their empathy. You can also learn about how exactly do they apply that? How do they, when they're planting that garden, what have they learned in other subjects like agriculture that will help them actually plant that garden? You can assess, project can be a very effective method of assessing, because you can assess a very wide range of learning activities, learning experiences using the projects. For projects, you can also incorporate other assessment tools like the observation schedules, the rating scales, the checklists, the journals, the portfolios. You can also incorporate all those still in the project. It's a very effective assessment tool. Then the journal, this one now is a personal reflection of the learner. They write their own feelings, they write their own daily experiences about the learning outcome each and every day. For example, during a day, the learner can write that day they learned about writing minutes, that day they learned about writing a letter, and then over time now, these, when they are built up and they're stored correctly, they can be a very effective assessment tool for the learner. Now, I would like to stop at there and invite the next presenter from my group, Mr. Wasi. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Good morning, colleagues. Maybe my former speaker has not really requested for questions, and you can ask a question before you proceed if you have any question from the previous presentation.
Mr. Wasa, I was inquiring about the portfolio.
Yes.
About the portfolio, how do you go about it, creating the portfolio, and how do you share now the evidence that you've collected during the project?
Okay, I'll answer your questions through my presentations. Of course, when I'll be talking about portfolios, I think you'll be able to know maybe how to go about it. Yeah. Now, just from the picking up from where the last speaker has left, we just talked about the projects, and on the projects you do research, the students do research, or the learners do research, then they present their findings, then their findings can be rated through the rating scale, of course, which has been already talked about. You can rate the student by through the rating scales using the checklists. Then again, now you upload the marks depending on the using maybe observation schedules. Then and then after now you can upload it. You can present their marks electronically on the website, or you can present it physically. That is where now we will come now to look at what now the portfolio. Now that comes out, now we look at what we call the portfolio. Now when we are talking about a portfolio, what do you mean by a portfolio? What do you mean by a portfolio? Huh? Now when we are talking about a portfolio, it's just a collection of the learners' work over a certain period of time. And you can see a project can be in form of a portfolio, can be also included in the students' portfolio, because a project can be is something that is done over a certain period of time. So once now you collect the marks from the students, you can also record the what in the portfolio. But remember, in the portfolio, we majorly write the strengths, what the student has done best. Yeah, the major areas the students have done best, their skills, the skills they have been improving over time. We don't include the weaknesses in the portfolio. We only write majorly their strengths the learner has displayed over a certain period of time. Let's for example look at how maybe the student has been singing, has been being a member of the journalism club. The first day the learner was able to present, but not audibly. She was shy. But over a certain period of time, the learner starts developing that courageousness, and now is now able now to display. So that one you can now record in the student portfolio. Now, for example, also we can look at if the student maybe we had instructed them to draw something. Then they present. So the student will draw, maybe using using what? The rating scale. You will rate the student. Now you will rate the learner. Now umekosea hapo. So the student will do what? Will continue repeating. Then after some time, when the student is now able to draw a perfect what? A perfect that is where now you do what? You will now record and put the what? The information in the student portfolio. But remember, we have various categories of what? Portfolios. So I request maybe you will tell me, you will be able to explain to me or describe what these portfolios are. We have three major types of portfolio. We have one working portfolio, we have three showcase portfolio, and then assessment portfolio. So Mr. Mapesa will tell us what we mean by a working portfolio. Then Muridi will tell me what we mean by assessment portfolio. Then Madam Faria will assist me to tell me about what we mean by a showcase portfolio. So as I continue, as I tell you here, so we have two types of portfolio. Now, the portfolio may be presented in what? Either physically or electronically. Altogether, just as you had posed a question that, how can you repeat now that question?
My question was, how do you generate or how do you make a e-portfolio? And how do you go about it on you're uploading the student work from because what I understand for the from the e-portfolio, you're supposed to record if it's a project work, the learner individually, the learner should be able to upload the work that she has done from the first day she started the project.
Yeah. It is very simple. It is very simple. So what you do is that you go to the internet. Then you extract an already existing extract of the layout of a portfolio. Okay. It's just a template of a portfolio which has not been filled. We have so many templates of portfolios in the platform or on the website. So you go and extract a template of what? Already existing portfolio. Then from there now you will do what? You will customize it. You understand? You will customize it, you will customize the template. And you can only customize it when you already have what? You have already inserted, you have already done what? Created a platform whereby now you maybe you use your email. I get it. Use your email, you create a platform where you have, it's like you create your site. You have a site, a website. Okay. So once you have a website or you have your email, just like the way you do, you can go to the internet using your email. I get it. So once you go to the internet using your email and you have already uploaded that, you upload the template now onto your email. Now you will now start filling in the information that you want as time goes by on the template that you have already inserted on your platform. I get it. Unanielewa? Now, after a certain period of time now, remember you have not published. It is already within your domain. Okay. So once you finish now filling it, now you will now do what? You will share with the public domain. That is maybe now sharing with the, if it is NEC, you share now with the NEC you send, or you can just publish for other people now to do what? To view. So that means that you cannot produce an e-portfolio when you have not what? You have not created a website. You should have at least a website. If not a website, you should have an email. And that email or a Google account like this. So that Google account is where now you will upload the template that you have. So every time you will be doing what? You will be going to your website and now fill in the marks or fill in the information that you want on into the template that you have already uploaded. Now, after you have done with your work, you will now publish or share with the public domain or share with the person that you want to share with. As simple as that. So, yeah, that is how you can use an e-portfolio. Now, I had posed a question for you to tell me about the types of portfolios. The working portfolio, the showcase portfolio, and the assessment portfolio. Mr. Mapesa, working portfolio?
Well, I've used a digital device to get the meaning of working portfolio. It's a collection of learners' ongoing work and drafts. For example, the projects which these learners are doing, especially in grade 4, 5, grade 7, grade 8, come and integrate the science. So that project cannot actually be done just at once. It's like it takes some time for you to complete. So as this learner says, to start from digging, then now preparing an nursery bed and all that. You will take a photo, for example, or as you write the information, then you put in a portfolio. So that's a working portfolio.
Correct. So that means that in the working portfolio, you can either upload in the working portfolio, you can put there either finished or unfinished work. That means unfinished work means that you are maybe it is like a project. So you only insert in the portfolio a specific area or a specific task you have given within the project. Then when it is done, you fill that working portfolio. So at the end of the day, cumulatively, then the portfolio will be complete. Assessment portfolio.
A collection of learners' work that shows the progress, skills and achievement, and the competencies achieved over time.
So that means that in the assessment portfolio, right? In the assessment portfolio, this one is strictly what? It is strictly what? Inscribed within the curriculum design. We remember in the working portfolio, you may give the work outside the classroom. You see, it may not be even included in the curriculum design, but you want to develop, you want to insert a certain skill within the student, so that that one can be in the working portfolio. But in the assessment portfolio, you are assessing them as per the curriculum design. So the skills and competencies that are evaluated are recorded down and now inserted within the assessment portfolio. It can be even in the formative assessment or even in the summative assessment. That is now where you now key in the assessment portfolio. Then the showcase portfolio, madam?
Yeah, the showcase portfolio, this one, it entails the best work of the student, maybe also the time. This learner will be, maybe she has been doing drawings, but this one should be the best of all, not all work, but the best one with high quality. And this one is chosen by either the guidance of the teacher, not just student alone.
Correct. Now, as we say, in the showcase portfolio, the learner is able to display. The learner displays the best of him or her to the other learners or to the teachers. For example, as Madam has said, maybe the learner was drawing. You were trying to test a skill on drawing. Then, yes, Madam is here. Is already displaying. Yeah, he's already displaying what? The what? There. He's already showcasing. So this one, you can see he knew very well. So I can display this one. I can put this one in the what? In the showcase portfolio. So the learner is able to display in front of other learners to see, because it is the best among all the drawings. So we now put in the learner's showcase portfolio. Out again? Yes.
Now, can you say what Madam has done is a very serious core competence of creativity and imagination?
Yeah, it might be creativity and imagination, but remember, the madam can maybe she was guided by a certain she was guided by somebody, or she was guided basing on the rules that were there. She managed to draw this one. Remember, remember in the CBE, the learner is not should not just do the work on his or her own. Is guided by the teacher. So maybe the teacher for this case maybe told the learner to draw your class teacher standing in front during an English lesson. Then the learner was now able to draw that teacher. You see, is guided. The learner is not just drawing on his or her own. but the learner draws as per the guidelines of the teacher. Yeah. Yes.
I have a question.
Yes.
For example, in that case, a learner just wrote the picture and told me, Madam, this is the picture. So in that case where now the learner is not guided, is not told to draw something, to do something, and decides to do that, how can you categorize that?
That one you cannot. That one you will categorize it in the observation schedule. You will categorize it in the observation schedule because the learner what has not been told, but it just come out. But at the end of the day, at this time also, you can do what? You will put it in the anecdotal record. You will put it in the anecdotal record because he was not guided. He was not guided to do so, but he just came out and displayed the what? The art of drawing by herself. So that one will be put in the anecdotal record, and now the teacher will be able now to do what? To give possible recommendations for other learners to emulate, or the teachers to do what? To support the learner in drawing. You can see here, this is also an example. Maybe this one here is an example also of a learner who tried to draw something. Maybe this one would be the best in drawing this one. Maybe a tree diagram showing the branches of literature in Kiswahili. You can see here, the tree diagram showing the branches of literature in Kiswahili. Oral literature in Kiswahili. So you can see this learner might come and display. If the work is the best, then it will be put in there. It will be put in what? In the portfolio, in the showcase portfolio. Now, from there now, I want us to talk about something else here. We have what we call the journal. Already, Madam has talked about it. So I'll go to oral and oral assessment. oral assessment. So this one in the oral assessment, this first one, this one is whereby now the learner is what? Is assessed on the speaking and listening skills or observation skills. So this one here, maybe the teacher asks the questions verbally, for example, in class. Yeah? In class, just the way Mr. Mapesa was here talking about assessing the learner, assessing for, it is assessing as learning, assessing for learning, right? So in class, as the teacher is posing questions, the learner is able to see how the student is composing the respondents, how she is articulating the words. So here, that assessment is oral assessment. That one is what we call oral assessment. Now, in oral assessment also, it can be even in singing, that is oral assessment. But in oral assessment, the second one here, that one is based on, in what? The skills of the learner. For example, drawing, for example, observation skills in a student. That one is whereby now we do what? We look at what we call the oral assessment. This one, you assess the learner. Maybe you tell them, you are in a practical, a biology practical. Then you tell the students, can you observe this? But that one may not be what? If you tell the student that can you observe this, it cannot be oral assessment, but it is oral assessment because you are talking to them. But oral assessment, you leave the learner. You leave the learner to do what? To observe. To observe. It's just observation. Maybe the learner walks around, observes, and now comes and now do what? gives out a report on what she has observed. Another tool of assessment is what we call the learner profile. The learner profile. Now, in the learner profile, we have been talking about observation assessment, observation schedules, have been rubrics, we have been talking about the portfolios. So, all this one, remember, the teacher is gathering information about the what? The student. Is gathering information about the student. Now, in the learner profile, here, the what? The teacher summarizes everything or details from the student. Writes out the summary of what he has gathered from the student, be it from the portfolio, be it from the assessment, from the checklist, from others, all the others that you have just talked about. The information that is gotten there is summarized. Now the teacher writes out a summary of how the learner looks like. For example, umekuwa ukifanya nini? You have been singing well, you have been very obedient, you have been participating well in class. So the learner, now the teacher will come and write a summary of you in the learner's profile. So what is put in the learner's profile? Here are some of the entries that can be put in the learner's profile. The knowledge, if he is a good communicator, if he is an inquirer, how have you learned about the learner you are talking about? Now, you can also be able to do what? To write some of the challenges or some of the weaknesses you have observed from the student, because you are giving out a summary picture of how the learner looks like. You will put it in the learner's profile. You will put this in the learner's profile. You can see here, this is the area you will get the information to put in the learner's profile. The observation schedule, the learner's journal, the checklist, the portfolio, the projects. So as you observe everything from these assessment tools, you now come and put it in the learner's profile. For example, if this one can be my learner's profile, so this one can be my learner's profile. So I write everything about the learner and now put it, I enter the details here. So that is all about the learner's profile. You can see here, this is Farida Nadiaka. Here, the area was a learning project, and now you put the students' strengths, the students' also the preferences, then the area of improvement. You put it in the learner's profile. You record what do you think the learner should improve. And now we have what we call the anecdotal record. Anecdotal record is just a behavioral thing. It is just an assessment tool that is based on the behavioral, on the behaviors of the learner. How is the learner behavior? But now this one is based on something that is very unique. A unique behavior that is identified from the learner. For example, a few days ago, Mr. Kirima was sharing something from a learner called Fatuma Abdinur. Fatuma Abdinur entered the computer lab. Now, as she entered the computer lab, she found that the desks were disorganized. They were just haphazardly placed. So, just out of sense, the learner identified that mistake, and now she arranged the desk without being told to arrange the desks where they are supposed to be. You can see that one is you have identified that this learner is a very good learner. Which skill was observed from that learner? Which skill was observed from that learner? The learner came, found the desk was were just placed haphazardly, they were poorly arranged. Then the learner decides to arrange them very well, and then she goes out. Which skill is that? Or what competency did the learner display? Yes?
Of course, we can say the learner is responsible.
Responsible. So, what do you recommend if you are the teacher? Which area can you place the learner in a school? You want to cultivate that skill now. Yes? Class prefect. Because he is able to tell others, learners, that please, you can see the class is poorly arranged. Let us arrange the desk so that when the teachers are coming in, they are able to see that we are organized, right? Yeah. So that is it. So that is now, that one, you put it in the anecdotal record. You write that one, and you must do what? In the anecdotal record, you must show the location. Where did the incident happen? How then you describe how it happened. It happened. You see, I said by saying in the computer lab. But you must also show the time. What time? But remember, anecdotal record can also be proved by doing what? By even taking photographs. You can take a photograph. Maybe the student was jumping, the learner was jumping. You can take a photograph. You can even take a slide video of how the student was doing that task, so that it can act as an evidence of what? Can act as an evidence to the other learners or even the staff, to ensure that now that skill is being cultivated within the learner. Now, this is just a sample of anecdotal record. You can see the school, so you write here, you fill the name of the school, the learners. Of course, if you are in that school, maybe you may be having a letterhead or not a headline of the school, so you may not be able to write the name of the school. So the learner's name, observation date, grade or even the form, then observation time, you see the time, then you describe the description of the event, you describe how it was, how it happened. The desks were what? Poorly disorganized. Then the setting, then the teacher's comments, you will recommend on what do you think should be done to encourage the student, to encourage the learner to continue with the skill. Then this is just a sample of what happened to Roy, Ray, and Joy when they were doing what they were maybe in the lab connecting the circuits. What happened there? Now we have written tests. Written tests, I think they are very common. This is what happens even in this school. We normally have them. So you give out a written, you set an exam, then you give the learner to do what? To write, to fill the questions, to answer the questions. That is what we call written tests. Now, it can be, remember written tests can be, for example, grade 7 and 8 have multiple choice questions, and some parts they have structured questions. Structured questions is where now they will fill on their own. So that is also an assessment tool. That question paper is already an assessment tool. So you assess them, then you fill the what? You record the marks, or you record what the student have scored. So this is an example of a sample of a written test. It was a mathematics. This is how it is. So the student feels. So this was a sample of a question that was given. This is a structured question. This is a structured question. So the student needs to read and do what? Interpret the question and then starts calculating. Now, we have what we call the assessment rubrics. Assessment rubrics. Now, when we are talking about assessment rubric, is just close to observation schedule, but now assessment rubric is whereby you give a learner a specific task. You give a learner a specific task, and now you observe. You observe how they are doing. Remember, you are observing. In observation schedule, they are intentional. They are not intentional. But in the rubric, in the assessment rubric, is an intentional observation that is done when the learner is given a specific task to perform. So you do what? You extract some competencies from the learner as observed during the performance of that of that particular task that you have given to them. For example, I saw Madam giving out here an example that during PE lesson, the learner does what? You tell the students to do what? To have a skipping rope. So as they are skipping, you can see, you can just see the student who is enjoying the skipping and who is not enjoying and who is struggling. So you will be able to go to know that this one who is not struggling, is actually enjoying and is very joyous. That means that that student has a skill in skipping. Yeah. So that is what we call the assessment rubric. Is an intentional observation. It is an intentional tool, an intentional way of observing a student, a learner, and getting out the competencies that are emulated by that student. So that is it. Then, so we have three types of rubrics. We have one analytical assessment, and we have holistic assessment. In analytical assessment, we do what? It breaks down the content. It breaks down the content. Analytical. You see, maybe you want telling the student to do what? To draw something. Then, as they are drawing, for example, a certain picture, you can see this is the map of Kenya. This is now the map of Kenya. And as you have seen, I have drawn. But now, there is also another student who has just drawn here. And now he has tried to do what? To show the Indian Ocean and also Lake Turkana. So you analyze the two pictures. So you can see, that the student was able to draw very clear. However, he has not what? The student has not inserted the Lake Turkana, has not shown Indian Ocean, has not shown maybe here that this is Lake Victoria. So this one now, you see that means that this student has a skill in drawing, and he also has a skill of remembrance, so of recalling. So this one will score higher marks as compared to this. So you will recommend this one to improve, on the areas to improve. This one is what you call analytical rubric. But you have what you call holistic. Holistic rubric is whereby now you give marks at the end. Maybe we are doing what? I'm telling you to do what? To start to clean the class. In analytical rubric, I come and observe how you are cleaning. I can see that student is cleaning very well. Yeah, in fact, she's using soap. Yeah, I can. Yeah. But now, in holistic rubric, I will come to assess when you are through. Are you through with cleaning? Yes. Let me go and check. Okay, I can see it is clean. You don't know how the student has cleaned, but you can see it is clean. Then you give the marks. Depending on the conditions you have found the class. That is holistic rubric. Now, this is just examples. Then now we have what we call those are now the major types of what? Assessment tools. So we have just clearly seen that we have various types of assessment tools. We started by looking at observation schedule, and we say that in observation schedule, the learner is observed in a way that maybe the learner will not even know, but you are observing the behavioral changes that are being developed in the learner. Then you have the checklist. Of course, Madam talked about the checklist and said that in the checklist you have already the specific skill that you want to get from the student. So you check and mark. Then you have the rating scale. In the rating scale, we say that in the rating scale you give marks depending on what you have observed, or you rate the student exceeding expectation or meeting expectation as per what you want. Remember, you can use the checklist in the rating scale. Maybe did he mention the name of the artist? Yes, in the checklist. Tick. Now, how can you rate? Then you maybe in the checklist mentioning the name of the artist, 3 marks. Then you rate. Then we have what we call now the assessment. You have now what we call the assessment rubric. Of course, I have told you here that you observe the learner, but intentionally, after giving the learner a task, you observe. Then you have 2 types of rubrics: analytical and holistic, whereby you observe as the learner continues to do the task, or you continue you observe at the end of the task. Then you have the questionnaire. Of course, in the questionnaire, you know very well, you have 2 types of questionnaires: closed-ended questionnaire and open-ended questionnaire. In the closed-ended questionnaire, the learner is given what? The multiple choices to do what? To fill. Of course, you want to get feedback from them today. What is your best subject? Math or chemistry? The learner ticks appropriately. Then, in your own opinion, what do you think we can do to improve the lesson? Then the student fills the questionnaire on herself. That is now open-ended questionnaire. Then, of course, we have what we call project method of assessment. You give a learner is given a specific task to do research and now present the findings. Or remember the projects, we have several types of projects: income generating projects, learning projects, and then any other. Have 3 types of projects: income generating, learning projects, then assessment project. Correct. So we have a learning project. Ni ile tu unasoma ile project. For example, in formative assessment, you just give them as you learn. Is what is part of the learning. So they learn. For example, you tell them that make what? Make a toy of a student skipping a rope. So that is just what? That is a type of assessment. That is a type of what? Of what that I have said about a project that is just for showing. Then you have income generating project. Of course, you may be having a project, maybe rabbit keeping. But in the rabbit keeping, you are assessing them, but it is also income generating. You are planning Sukuma Wiki. You are selling, but it is your project. You are learning. So you see, that is it. So you should also be knowing about the major types of projects. Of course, we have another one, the journal. In the journal, the learner tells you what she is feeling. Maybe during a lesson, I felt embarrassed during a lesson. I felt embarrassed for not able to do what? To do a mathematics calculation. So then you will fill in the journal, and now you will comment what the student can do to improve. That is a journal now. Then you have, of course, portfolio. We talked about e-portfolio and the normal portfolio that we have. Of course, the project can be put in the portfolio. Then oral and oral, we say that oral takes on the speaking, listening skills, then oral on the observation skills. Then you have what we call the learner profile. In the learner profile, we say that in the learner profile, we put the summary of what you have observed from the learner, depending on what you have observed from the other the assessment tools, the checklist, the rubrics, the observation schedules, the portfolio, the projects. What have you noted about the learner? What you have noted, you record it down, and you record where? In the learner profile. Then you have the anecdotal record. In the anecdotal records, of course, you see the skill that is emulated or displayed by the learner during a certain period of time, or just a learner displays a skill in a manner that she may not even be able to know that I have displayed this skill, but you are able to note that unique skill or competence that has been displayed by the learner. Then you have of all the written tests that I have just talked about, that you have written tests, and in the written tests you will have structured questions, and you shall have also the multiple choices questions. So I believe that you have learned more about the assessment tools. I'll be very happy if I see you using several of them. If not one, use several of them. Have a checklist, have an anecdotal record, have a portfolio, have a learner profile to write what you have observed from your learner. It can help us to improve in certain areas. For example, you observe that the learner can sing very well. I come and check. If you give me that learner that this one is now the best in music, I'll be very happy. Otherwise, thank you for listening to me. That is the end of my presentation. Unless you have any question. Yes?
Thank you. I have one about rubrics. We have analytical and holistic. Yes. So now, my question is, do we have cases of tasks which you need to employ both analytical and holistic? Is it okay, or sometimes, or all the times, you just employ one type of rubric?
You can use both of them. You can use both of them. Of course, you can use. It is very simple. In fact, in most cases you will be using all of them, because this in analytical rubric as a tool of assessment, you have given as the learners a project to work on. As they are working on, you are observing, and now going to write what? To record in the portfolio, or you record the marks. You record how are they? Were they able to drop the head overhead? Yes. Were they able to do what? Next, were they able to do what? To make the shading properly? Yes. You see, that one is analytical. But at the end of the day, when they have finished drawing, you will give out now the final verdict of how what? They have done what? They have presented now the whole thing. And that will be now a holistic rubric.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other question? Okay, thank you very much.